My name is Nicoll Yahgulanaas. I am by decree a Canadian. And what I mean by that is nobody ever asked me. Nobody ever invited me. They just came along one day and said, "Hey, you little Aboriginal guy, you're a Canadian." By birth, I'm a Haida. We come from an archipelago that you now know as Haida Gwaii, and it has a far older name, Haida Gwaii. It means coming out of concealment. And this is where I first explored the identities, the spaces between the two identities that I had inherited. I took that exploration on and have spent the last 60 years of my life working in the spaces between nation states and indigeneity. When the Canadians first came to Haida Gwaii, we knew we needed a new cosmology, but it had to be one based on our cultural values. And so we started to innovate, and together with Canadians, we created some new relationships, such as a community-controlled perpetual trust fund in which all the decisions made, even the ones about tens of millions of dollars, are made on the basis of consensus. You see, in our vision, everybody has a veto. In our vision, everybody is included, everybody counts, and nobody is left behind. Now, there's a lot of people who don't quite understand how the Indians and the Cowboys can be on the same team. And the reasons for that reluctance, I think, are attached to a worldview that has us all separated into little boxes with spaces, tidy little spaces between us and isolating us. Compartments are not only about who is on the inside, compartments are also about what is on the outside. And the spaces in between, they're patrolled by security guards, such as overly invested thought leaders, well armed with myth and generalizations. Like living human batteries in the Matrix movies, some people welcome the security of the box for the promise of a safe life. Moderated by untested assumptions, such boxes become caskets. I think that art has an opportunity to open up windows in these boxes. And if we're brave enough to go to the window and look outside, we'll see that the space is neither empty nor isolating. Now, I've got a little gadget here which I'm going to press a button and I think a picture's going to come up. It's 1985. It's November. This is a gravel road punched through a temperate rainforest. The sky is tarnished silver, anxious to rain. It's cold, and the dark trees loom over two lines of people on the road below. One dressed in dark blue with yellow banded hats, and the others, a line of Haidas with arms interlocked. We stand between the police and the trees. Two groups, two boxes, and an extremely intense space in between. And I know I was there. When the police came to arrest my friend Haida Gwaii, she reached inside her very ample bosom and pulled out a Bible. And she said, "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And at that moment, Haida had walked out of the box and into the space. Haida Gwaii, Ethel Jones, Fussy Marks, and 70 other Haidas arrested had rejected the threat of an institutional assault, along with millions of people, truly millions of people, We rejected the idea of violence against the land. And when that RCMP officer cried, he too moved into the space. And I'll tell you something about your queen. Her men in red serge never looked so good as they did that day. They were dancing on the beach in the forest with us, celebrating the victory. Human activity today in that 14,000-year-old forest is governed by the consensus of two internationally recognized entities. One, Indigenous peoples, the Council of the Haida Nation, and the other, Canada. National Geographic says that this area is the best protected wildlife area in all of North America. Yeah. Thank you all for that, because it was all of us that did that. It wasn't just the few of us on the road. I'm a visual artist, and I like to work in the spaces in between. In graphic novels or comic books, these spaces are called gutters. Notwithstanding the messy name, they're rather tidy places, usually very linear, a lot of right angles, very white, very vacuous. And they provide a backdrop for the story, for the narrative safely contained within the box. Now, I want to try and illustrate this, and I need your help here now. I want you all to play a game with me, and I want you to pretend you're in a comic book. I want this to be a very large comic book, and I want you to imagine yourself inside the box. Nice little drawing right there of you on the seat, looking really good. You might be forgiven for thinking that that page you're on has only got one box. But I'd like you to look around and consider there are 3,500 such boxes on that page. And the spaces between these boxes are not empty. They represent a physical space between individuals. They also represent a psychological distance between us. They represent space. Now, this comic book that we built, it's got a lot of pages, and it's going to take us a lot of time to get to the last page. I suggest it might take a lifetime. But if you agree with me for a moment that it does take some time to get to the farthest page, then you also understand that these spaces, these gutters, also represent and contain time. Our boxes are not floating in some vacuous, empty space. We're living in an incredibly huge narrative that we can't even comprehend. The world around us and the spaces between each of us in this comic book are filled with tragedy and celebration, with pushing and pulling. Even as we sit here in this moment, at this time, in this place, cosmic galaxies are moving through us. They're colliding and being reborn. If you can imagine the space in between to be not empty, but full, not vacuous in any way, but to be vibrant and alive, then you have the ability to take that casket, that box, and turn it into a garden. This is a page from a book I wrote called Red, a Haida Manga. Notice how this black line, this undulating, compressed, expanding form moves through the colored narrative. That narrative, by the way, is us. The only reason why that narrative exists with any sense of meaning is because we've all agreed to give it meaning. But that black undulating line, just like the gutter, it represents time and space. But it's not empty. Look at it. It's full. It expands. It pushes in. It has an intimate relationship to the narrative. Now here's a sheet of paper with 6 pages on it from the same book, Red Haida Manga. Notice how the line goes through all the individual narratives. Notice how it pulls them together. Notice the intimacy between all the boxes. There are no white spaces here. There are no vacuous moments. Everything is connected together. Now here's the 5-meter mural that went on to become the book. And if you look at the black line, you'll see that this matrix has its own presence. It exists outside of our tiny narrative. It has a presence of its own. Galaxies will continue to collide and be born without us. What a wonderful adventure it is that we can participate in that moment. And this piece here, this Haida manga piece, is not an exploration of how we're separate from galaxies. It's not an exploration of how we're separate from one another. It's an examination of how we're joined together, of our commonality, of our common experience, of us moving into the space together, of Haida elders moving into the space, of the RCMP moving into the space. On this dark day in Paris, let me say, I think that art has the capacity to pull us together. It's true that a brush is more powerful than a sword. Now, I needed to test this idea out because at this point, this is just this odd little guy who was raised in a fishing village in a North Pacific island, off his studio, doodling away. Last month, I was the first ever artist in residence at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. So I left my isolated little, oh sweet. Thank you. So I left the little West Coast world here and went off to test this out in Manhattan. And what I did is I took a 4-meter long sheet of paper and I drew this time-space line, this frame line device. It's very similar to that there, the black line. And I put it on the paper. And in one day we had 1,000 people stop and draw and color in the boxes, in the space, and at the end of the day, we had created a beautiful mural that is now in their collection. Now, New York's a big town, and I think we need to admit that it's just a little bit bigger than our little town. But like I said at the beginning, there looks like there's about 3,500 of you here. So I have a little challenge here in the sports arena. The game is on. The game is on, kids. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to very quickly sketch together a 4-meter piece of paper, and I'm going to put it up there by Banyan Books, and I'm welcoming you to come up and to do your own little exploration and your own little statement. At the end of the day, we will have created something never created before. It will be the map of the cosmology of us together in one space at one time. I really welcome you to be bold and step into the space. Thank you very much. Thank you.